We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one addition to the agenda, and that's the Animal Control Officer's contract. We'll put that under new business. I have no remarks. Open public comment for items not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none. Seth, you are up.
How about that?
All right.
All right,
Just-
guys. Well, I guess I'm here to two reasons, although I just wanted my quarterly report first. Is that I think what I'm going to roll with? All right. Well, the school year wrapped up recently, so that concluded our after-school program. We had 38 kids participate this year. Really a great staff there. That program runs from 2:45 to 5:30 every day after school. Our baseball, softball wrapped up. We had 70 kids participate in that. Run by all volunteer coaches other than obviously Ian and myself. So there's no way that program happens without a tremendous help from the community there with some pretty awesome coaches. Preschool graduated 14 students June 12th. Registration for next year has been extremely strong. We're just about all full for next year already, so that's continues to be a really successful program. The pool opened June 13th. We have 17 seasonal staff members. They're off to a great start. We've been pretty busy even with some of the questionable weather days. We've sold 93 resident family passes, 21 non-resident family passes, and 4 group passes for a total of 118 passes, which is right about average. We're anywhere from 120-ish to 135 or so. And we'll still sell a few more. It's early in the summer, so right where we anticipate being. Day camp program is full. We take 30 campers each week. Other than, I think this week we might have had 29, with it being the week of the 4th, so people take some time off. But and that runs June 24th through August 23rd, so there's 9 weeks of camp. Summer program registration has been really strong. We have 29 in our archery program, 21 in sports camp, 24 signed up for the annual youth pool party, 7 signed up for tennis, or maybe 8 now in tennis. The community market is really well organized and growing from last year. We're looking forward to some improved weather on market days. That would be just delightful if we could kind of have some nice weather. It's been a little bit of a tricky start with the 2 days so far, but we're going to just keep our fingers crossed that the next day works out well. There's a couple different groups. We've been running pickleball in the evenings at the elementary school, Wednesday evenings during the winter. Now that everybody's outside, there's a couple different groups that meet a couple of different times a week, kind of organized on their own using the pickleball courts that we had lined at the tennis courts. It seems to be pretty popular and growing, so that's worked out well. We've wrapped up the first round of projects outlined in the recreation master plan at the pool, with the ADA parking and ADA access to the shelter, some improved access to the kiddie pool area, and thanks to Anson Baldwin Tree Care and Johnson's Paving, they really did an awesome job for us. We've had a lot of compliments from the public in general, appreciative of those projects. So, and then we want to thank the Vermont Mulch Company and the Vernon Highway for Vermont Mulch providing us with the mulch, the Highway Department helping us spread it on the playground at the park. So it looks really nice and adds some safety. I think they call it safety carpeting. It's mulch, but we can call it carpeting if that's what it's supposed to. From a budgetary standpoint, we actually are looking pretty good. I think we're in a really good spot. We haven't overspent, at all. I think we'll come in under budget in terms of expenses, and we'll come in over in terms of our goal for revenue. So we should be in a really good spot. I can't provide complete numbers at this point, but things look pretty good there. So that's kind of my report. That's kind of where we're at on the rec department at this point, and then I'll chat with you guys about some ARPA requests in a little bit.
Right. Do you have something you have to get to?
I coach a baseball game at 7:30 in Walpole, that if you'd like me to do my ARPA stuff, I would love to do it, but if
Why
not.
don't you do your ARPA stuff? So
To be
bad?
perfectly honest, it's not for work, it's selfish, it's my son's team, and I would just like to be there, so.
Go for your ARPA.
Ah, thanks. All right, well, I'll hop into my ARPA request. So I mentioned that we had kind of completed the first round of projects that were outlined in the master plan project. This is kind of the second wave of stuff here. What we're looking to do, and I think you guys have this sheet in front of you, looking to renovate the shelter bathrooms. This is one of those things that, maintenance stuff, whenever we hear like, you need to level fund your budget or you need to reduce your budget, unfortunately, maintenance is where things suffer. That's where you say, all right, if I'm gonna cut something out of the budget, it's typically in the maintenance line. So the shelter bathrooms definitely need some work. I've worked with Brad Beatty, construction's a Vernon contractor who I got a lot of faith in. Bill Gilbert on the plumbing side of things. We're gonna work with King's Electric on the electric side of things. But basically what we're looking to do in the shelter bathrooms is kind of a complete gut and overhaul. They need it desperately. And so the contractor labor prices are probably in the ballpark of 8,000 to 10,000. Materials includes new jambs for the doors, installation of screen doors, painting everything, tiling the floors. The goal is to tile the floors. We've had some moisture issue in there, which is kind of a challenge on the floors. So the goal is to tile it, and if the moisture issues, if we're not able to work through those, we may have to come up with an alternative plan just from a bonding standpoint. But that's the goal. Replacing all the dispensers, toilet, paper dispensers, paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers. Privacy fencing outside the bathroom doors just to kind of create a little bit of a barrier there, and then new partitions in the bathrooms. So for all the materials for that, that's about $17K. And then from a plumbing standpoint, remove all toilets, sinks, urinals that are pretty antiquated in there at this point, and replacing all those. And again, that's about another $9,000. And then roughly $3,500 for new lighting for that project. So for the bathroom, we anticipate those costs being somewhere around $39,500. The tennis or the basketball courts, there's a sizable crack across the middle that needs to be sealed, and then the entire court sealed and relined. And then I got the quote of $3,350 from Johnson's Paving and Asphalt. I think that's a pretty reasonable price to crack fill, seal, and reline it. Additional projects that we've looked at are the seal around the pool, and these projects were more outlined. We had planned to do some of these with our fiscal budget, and then when we looked at our proposed budget, when we originally presented, the thought was to try to see if we can use some ARPA funds and reduce it from our actual fiscal year. So this is where these numbers come from. We had $1,000 originally proposed in our budget for the pool deck seal product. Unfortunately, at this time is a little bit more expensive than we were hoping to have, but a maximum of $2,000 on the deck seal product, and that's a two-part mixture that we mix, and it pours between where the concrete hits the pool. So it's basically an expansion joint, and that keeps the water from getting in underneath behind the pool and damaging it in the winter months. So important to have that. Ian and I will perform the labor on that. That's just for product only. We like to have a replacement filter grid for the filter system. We had $500 in our original proposed budget. We removed that. We're hoping to use some ARPA funds just to have one available. And then the wild card here is the tennis court lighting. This was something we touched base on in the recreation master plan project, as well as in our fiscal year original proposal. We had originally proposed $1,000, and that was really just going to replace light bulbs at that point. The more we've dug into it, realizing kind of the age of things, there's quite a few ballasts that potentially would need to be replaced. Those aren't cheap. Those are $110 a piece. I think there's close to 30 of them. So the thought process here, we actually will be meeting with Josh King here pretty quickly to determine what is the appropriate way to proceed with the tennis court lighting. Whether or not we want to replace it, as is, or we want to look at some more efficient LED stuff, which I have a feeling that's probably going to be what the recommendation is. It's probably more just as cost effective to install that than it would be to replace everything that's there. So I don't have a figure on that yet. So, the things that I did present, figures on totals $45,350. And that really, other than the tennis court lighting, and potentially a couple of benches for some trails out behind the pool, that would really conclude, ARPA requests from the Recreation Department standpoint.
Thank you. Questions, board? Jeff? Brandon?
No, just a comment, Seth, you ought to look into Efficiency Vermont. I know they've helped us a lot for replacing old light fixtures with.
Yep.
with new.
I've worked with them
There's real money
previously, they're
there.
pretty good
Yeah.
work with.
Yeah.
Jim?
When do you think you'll know what the cost for the tennis court lighting is?
Oh, within a couple of weeks, hopefully.
Couple
No,
of weeks?
I spoke with Josh and those guys are really good to work with, so I know that. And they'll give us a good idea of what the best route is to take.
Okay, then you're gonna come back for funding for that.
I can do that, unless you wanna give me a blank check, which I'm gonna guess is probably not in the cards
Yeah, no
tonight.
problem.
Pushing it. Jean?
But it sounds like the lighting is gonna be too small to be in the capital plan. Hopefully.
Yeah, well,
maybe
yeah,
not.
the capital plan is anything over 10 grand.
10,000.
Yeah, I could see it being 10 grand or more, just to be determined. You know, I don't have that number. I do think it could be that, for sure.
Yeah.
And the nice thing, I'm hopeful that we could utilize like the existing structure that we have. And it's a matter of just removing, like those long lights that were awesome in 1971 that are not as awesome now. So that if those can be just removed and the existing,
Oh,
you know,
ours.
power supply and
Yeah.
in a matter of just putting some new LEDs up there.
Mhm.
But again, I'm a rec director, not an electrician, so I don't know, but I'm hopeful that would work.
Thank you.
Sure.
Take some advice and let you know. Unless you want to act tonight.
We seem to have quite a lot of requests on the table.
Yeah, we do. We're
And-
getting down.
Do we wanna maybe take another time to decide instead of just going individually, you know, kind of a ARPA funding component of a meeting?
Good idea.
Session.
There's
Yeah.
208 available, I believe, at this point.
Right.
Yes.
Well, there
Well, I
was,
think we're lower than that because
We're lower.
the highway department,
they took out
they
41,043.
took away 41 and that was not on that spreadsheet.
Oh, they're not on here?
No,
No,
Oh, man. It's probably because the bills haven't gone through.
yeah,
That's
so
why
there's
it's
40 grand less than
167.
that, 200.
Okay, so there we go.
It's not in there.
okay, we will let you know.
Okay, so from a time standpoint or thought process, do we have any idea what we were looking at, or?
Like at the next meeting
Next
to have it on the agenda to
Because you'll have your figures
just
by
make
then.
I
decisions?
should have for the electric, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
at your next meeting.
all right.
Go watch
you,
that
guys.
game.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
You too.
Thanks.
Town admin
Oh, that's
report.
even worse.
Sorry.
That's right now.
Yeah.
Very brief. I received an email from Matthew Cole from Great River Hydro stating there have been complaints and activities at the Vernon Beach and picnic area recently. This area is owned and maintained by Great River Hydro and a notice has been posted everywhere. Anyone observing inappropriate activities at the beach and picnic area are asked to promptly report activities to the Sheriff's Department or State Police. And Great River Hydro would like to ensure that the safety and enjoyment of the Vernon Beach is for everyone. The Municipal Solid Waste Services request for proposal for the dumpsters for the municipal waste has gone out and it is due on the 11th and will be on the agenda at the next meeting. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a staff safety issue that I would like to discuss later
Okay.
at some point.
So 60. Okay. Minute approval.
I'll do
Go
it.
ahead, Jean.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the regular select board meeting on Tuesday, June 18th, as written.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Jeff? Brandon?
Aye.
Jim?
I,
Jean?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Warrant.
Alrighty. I move that we approve payment of the following warrant. 25T, accounts payable $24,087.68. That was the end of 23-24. 1T, accounts payable $163,973.19. 25S payroll, $11,503.59. And 26S payroll, $18,422.22.
Is there a second?
second.
Is there discussion? All those in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Brandon?
Aye.
Jim?
I,
Jean?
Aye.
And then I, motion carries. Historians. Hello. Hello, Heather.
Cheryl Bauer and Beth Armington are also here, representing the historians. And we would like to, apply for ARPA funds for, painting of the chapel, 2 sides of the chapel, for $10,200. So the chapel was built, the chapel is owned and maintained by the historians. We took possession in 1984. It is on the National Historic Registry. And it's 164 years old and in very good condition. It's in a highly visible location. Its uses are limited due to its size. There's no water on site or septic or heat. But it does have excellent acoustics and an SE organ. So that kind of limits grants for the building. There may be some out there. We have looked in the past for some, but we didn't get far. So it has its original finish inside and it represents a craftsmanship that's a Greek revival craftsmanship, and we just think that it should be preserved for future generations. And we have some funding, but it would pretty much wipe us out. So we would like some help and be able to keep it in good condition for future.
Definitely. Okay. Jeff, do you have questions?
So what's the scope of the repairs? Paint? And
Scraping, painting, window glazing, they'll do a linseed oil primer and then 2 coats of latex paint.
Okay, so you're gonna paint the whole thing, or?
2 sides. We had 2 sides done
That's what I
about,
was-
yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, it seems like it was painted not that long ago.
it was just 2 sides, 2 years ago.
Yep. Okay.
About 2 years ago. And then we also had some slate repairs done.
Brandon?
I don't have any questions. I think it makes a lot of sense. I just wondering, as the ARPA funds are dwindling, if we put out requests for proposals from individual departments with what's left, how do we use this money effectively or efficiency with what we have left as it's getting down? I mean, I think that makes perfect sense, especially as limited as a budget as you asked for, historians in general. But I'm wondering if we tie that into some kind of work session on ARPA funds with some of the other requests. That makes
Sounds
sense.
good. Jim?
Yes.
the 10-2 that you're asking for, is that the entire bill, or are you paying 9,325, or is that
We paid $9,225 or something, about 2 years ago for 2 sides.
Okay,
And so, now it's a little bit higher for the next 2 sides, and I think it's just gonna keep going up over the years. And we did, put out three requests to contractors, one never replied. The contractor that did it before did give us a quote, and another one said they are no longer working on older buildings because of lead paint. The changes in the law, and what they needed to have for licenses. And so, yeah, the contractor that did the sides, the quote is from them, and they did a very good job.
That's
We're
really
pleased.
nice.
Can you explain what you're seeing as restrictions in terms of going after grant money? You said there was restrictions.
Well, we looked in the past, and I'm not really certain what, and I've looked at some, but it seems as though, because its use, it's very limited in its use. It's not open to the community, it's,
So you're saying the grants need to be they're focusing on buildings that are being used all the time?
not used all the time, no, but have more inclusive use. That's what I saw. But maybe I was looking in the wrong places. And we did have someone else looking. Have you spoke to, and what did she?
She said she didn't think there was much out right now, especially for that amount. That it's a relatively small grant, that it's a small request.
So, yeah, so we have a person who went to a grant, she went to a grant writing, how to write grants, and that's, her response at this time.
Oh, that's too bad.
We'll add it to our ARPA workshop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for your hard work on that. Sign complaint. Jean?
What?
The sign complaint, who's bringing up the sign complaint?
This is anonymous, it came from the town clerk in an email,
Okay,
although I don't know if it's accurate
okay.
information.
Let's check into that before we make a,
I looked at the sign, and the sign's not attached to the sign that says, fire warden. It's a sign that's behind that on its own little platform standing there. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know where we'd have anything to say about that.
We do. So let's move on to the animal control officer contract.
So this contract was received on Monday, and it's the same contract amount as we had last year, based on population, to be paid from the dog license fees fund.
What is your pleasure, board?
You still have enough going
Oh, yeah.
in that.
Do we have some kind of report on, like, activity she's done in town the past year?
She does an annual report, and I think I had something in the early spring on that. But she's been very busy.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had multiple dog bites. She also does a lot of research and investigating on animal cruelty. And there's been a couple of cases in town on that as well. And recently, it's my understanding that there was a few dogs loose, so she's been busy.
Was she involved in the rabies clinics too?
Yes, she ran multiple rabies clinics here, and it was wonderful because I think there had to have been at least 3 or 4 and she was consistently here and available to residents that were interested in that service. And that's not something that we've offered, I think, in a very long time,
Right.
and that was a bonus.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I noticed, I see a lot of postings, obviously on Facebook, pictures of dogs
Oh, yeah, 'cause it's-
without collars.
True.
And was wondering if the sheriff's department might keep an eye open for dogs without collars, because I know Tim's always saying, you know, there's no way we're anywhere, even half the dogs in town have licenses. And seeing as this is what's paying for our animal control lady, I think it would be worthwhile that somehow that is kind of policed. Just a suggestion.
very good. Thank you.
Could I?
Yes,
I believe that is something that the sheriff's department are very much working on, the unlicensed dogs. So they are trying to rectify that situation.
Well, you know what I'm saying, if you see, like, there was a picture with some beagle, no collar, you know, and you're always hearing things about people, oh, this dog's here and that dog's there, and obviously if there's no collar, that dog probably isn't licensed. So I just brought it up because I knew well, if the dog's licensed, it should have a collar.
We don't keep collars on our dogs, they're in the woods too much. So I do not keep a collar on my dog, or it's in its crate for the night, so.
I think we might wanna look at any statutes regarding the free-running dogs and what they have to have.
Yeah.
Because I believe there's something in there that states how they should be, you know, if they're not staying on your property and whatnot. I mean, we had that guy in here the other day about his dog that the woman who tried to grab his dog, what do you expect? The dog's gonna bite you, lady, but I'm just saying that it's just an area that I see that could probably use a little bit of looking over. And early on, I got calls when I first took on the constable thing to go check out some dogs up in Basin Road area. And when I found the dogs, they were at the house and on the deck, and everything looked kosher. But at that time, I was not aware of any other legalities regarding licensed dogs having collars or anything like that. And I don't know, there may not be,
Right.
but I think it's, I know people that probably as guilty, family that's as guilty as anybody else of not having a collared dog. And I just bringing it up because I know, like you said, the dog licenses pay for having her here. And having her here, I think, is a great thing, so.
I mean, we do have a dog ordinance, and dogs are to be under control, so therein lies the,
You're a dog owner.
I am.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's just that I'm looking at specifically
Right.
beef up the licensing.
And she's very aware of that. She's really, from my understanding from Tim, has really made that a mission.
Good.
And people have gotten letters from the sheriff's department because their dog is not licensed and
Excellent.
such, so
There's a lot of,
she's working on it.
yeah, there's been a lot of communication
Yeah.
with the town clerk on that issue.
Yeah.
She's always checking in with him.
I know, he always says something to me about, boy, if we had more dogs had their licenses here, we'd be better off. Well, they didn't know what was being done.
Yeah, they're trying.
okay, what is your pleasure on the contract, folks?
Oh, that's right too.
Jean,
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the contract for our animal control services with the Wyndham County Sheriff's Office.
do you have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Brandon?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
Just one more comment.
Pardon me?
One more comment. In last year's, town book
Report, yeah.
report, I looked high and low to try and find out about this, where the money, they didn't specify like the money for the dog officer. It was like it was all just, I thought it was all tied in with the whole Wyndham County Sheriff's thing.
I did too.
And I couldn't find anything. I'm just bringing it up so that in the future, that there will probably be a line item in the town report stating, that kind of thing.
I'll have to look to see where it is, because I know it has to be listed there.
Yeah, well,
It's just-
I didn't catch it. I went up and down and I'm saying, because I knew we were paying extra
I'll have to ask,
for
see where it
that
is.
dog control officer.
So it's coming out of the dog fund,
Mhm.
so that's a
Yeah.
separate fund.
Right, it should be reflected.
And there should be showing that there's money spent
Mhm.
out of that.
Mhm.
All these funds are all listed together.
I mean, it's not a big thing. I didn't see it and I questioned it. And that's when I was told that, well, it comes out of the dog licensing money. And I said, well, I understand that, but I says, I know it's contracted with Wyndham County Sheriff's Department. And it didn't seem like there was anything relating to it. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe my eyes aren't what they used to be.
It's on page 8. I think,
The dog fund.
the dog fund's on page 8. It says Humane Society contract was $1,085. Tags and supplies were $288.49. Animal control was $15.83.
So it's under, what was it under?
Dog fund.
Dog fund.
Dog fund, okay. I guess I was looking at the Wyndham County Sheriff's Department.
I think because we had this fund and,
That's what
It's
the
for
dog fund is set up for.
Yeah.
when we had our own animal control person, that's where expenses would be taken out of.
Mhm.
So now we use it for sheriff's services.
Excellent.
Okay, neighborhood watch signs.
Me? Well, I personally haven't seen a copy of the town, the rules for the signs. I didn't see a copy of that. You sent me a notice, but I didn't see, I couldn't find anything like an
A copy of the
attachment.
policy,
Right,
it's very general, it's
Okay.
not specific.
so it's basically what we've been talking about with the select board.
That they basically have authority over the roads, which grants them the authority to also decide how and where these signs are installed.
Okay, just a side note, in speaking with Marcos Miller, I had questioned the placement of the signs and I told him where we were looking to put them right up underneath. And he told me, he says, you can, if the select board wants, they could put them right in the middle, it's up to them. But he said, the idea to put them up higher is a good thing for two things. One, it's plenty visible, but two, lack of vandalism. And we don't have that much sign vandalism in town, but why put up signs just to have them vandalized? So I guess obviously my request is reissued for funds to get the 30 signs. I believe the price is still the same, however, I would have to verify that in contacting Econo Signs. But the number I had given you folks, I believe, was 700. It helps, Don, don't we?
786.
Keep the glasses hung around your neck, you can't see nothing. Yeah, 786, and his comment to me was the only way that would change would be shipping. But he said that would be more relevant to heavy items like the post, where the weight is substantial. So I'm re-requesting that figure in hopes of getting the signs in and up this summer, sooner than later. I don't know as far as active times, but I do know that in accordance with the National Sheriff's Organization and our own Sheriff's Organization, having them visible, having them there is definitely gonna help us, even though you may not see it tangibly, but it should be. And I gotta be honest with you, I got really into this thing quite a few years back when we actually still had a sheriff's department here. And my barn was broken into and they stole 6 5-gallon cans of gas. Now, I didn't mind so much the gas, but those were all brand new containers. And the local law enforcement had no luck finding anything, no clues, no nothing. And at that same point in time, several other neighbors in our neighborhood, along with adjoining neighborhoods, had similar break-ins. So my thought was, it's a good thing. It's a cheap insurance policy. Nothing replaces neighbors watching neighbors. And I think maybe some of you saw it, maybe some of you didn't. I put some suggestions in when you go on vacation this year. Several things not to do. Number one, don't post your vacation when you're out there on Facebook. Nothing like that, you know.
Stating the obvious.
You know, and several other things I put on Facebook, because that's the easy way to get to people to recognize it. But nothing beats neighbors watching neighbors, you know. And so I request the funding for those signs. And this isn't just me, incidentally. I have one member of the,
One here.
one here from the group, and I've had others in the past, but we've had a fairly active group. Some of you have attended our meetings, and I've kind of backed off on meetings for the summertime, because let's face it, everybody's got things to do in the summer, including me. So anyway,
Okay,
that's what I have.
Right.
Jim?
I mean, I think that the cost is under $1,000, and really, if the signs being there stop even one vandalism or one break-in, isn't it worth, in comparison to what all these other groups are asking for? It's under $1,000, and I may be misspeaking here, Don, but I mean, we're not even asking any of the select board people to do the physical labor. Members of the neighborhood watch
Thank God.
are the ones that are they'd be doing the physical labor, all the hard work. It's just a matter of being willing to give some of the town's money to this.
And get the coverage. We
And I
really
know
have that.
more than several years ago, we were broken into. I was at work, my husband went into Brattleboro for an hour, he came home and our door had been kicked down and, and things stolen. So, if they would deter just, somebody from, make them think twice.
It's not a cure-all, but it's a start.
Right.
Jeff, do you have any questions?
No, I definitely agree with the intent. Kind of going back to the dog thing too. So I have a beware of dog sign outside my house, but I don't own a dog.
How does it
So-
work?
Can't hurt.
I haven't been broken into yet, but, so I don't want you to think that I have an unlicensed dog at my place.
No, but Jeff, you pointed out a good thing. I mean, the sign, who's gonna wanna take a chance that you got a dog?
Because he may have bought it yesterday.
Yeah, that's
His
it.
wife
Of
might
course,
have
we
one.
now all know it's a fake sign.
Yeah, well, I'm counting on, no criminals having to watch select board meetings.
Yeah, really.
Can't verify that.
Dream on. Brandon?
Well, according to the sheriff's department, so you know, the criminals watch Facebook.
Of course.
Yeah.
Criminals
they
watch
do.
Facebook, and that's why I brought up the
Everybody
part about, don't, you go on
pours out their
vacation, great, when you come back, then put your postings on. But when you're posting and you're in Honolulu, it's not a smart thing.
So the other thing I would add is like recently, I happened to come home middle of the day and there was some package delivery, supposedly a package delivery van or box truck. And two guys are definitely from out of town and I'm like, what do you guys want? Oh, the driver's, oh, we're trying to deliver a package. And I'm like, well, to who? I couldn't understand the guy. It's like he didn't even know who he had to deliver it to. And I'm like trying to ask him like, well, where? And he couldn't tell me where. So I'm like, well, I'm not getting any package. You guys probably gotta leave. So I don't just sometimes when it's you have a feeling like this ain't right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So anyways, I called just in case. I called the sheriff's department and told them, describe the truck and the drivers. And just in case somebody else has this mysterious,
Perfect example.
somebody's trying to deliver a package. I know the guy says something about UPS, and like 5 minutes later, I see the UPS van coming up. So
well, you're a perfect example of what this neighborhood watch is.
Sure.
People see things, say something.
well, I like I said,
And you
the fact that I'm asking the guy, like, I was like,
Right, right.
maybe he's legit. I got a neighbor that probably is looking for something, but I don't know.
Right. But
So-
that is a good example, even on the neighborhood watch, and there's another Facebook one, I can't remember the name of, very similar.
Watch
Where
group.
people can post, like, there was a van stopping here and they said they needed to deliver, but they couldn't tell me the name or the address. Heads up, keep your eyes open. It really is, it does get out there to people just by posting on Facebook like that.
And the sheriff's the one that told us that
Yeah,
the Facebook, these guys case Facebook. They find out if people are away,
Yeah.
they find out, and like with our neighborhood watch and Vernon page, I throw something on there from time to time too, not just the neighborhood watch, but they check and they see that, well, these people are doing something here, so we might not wanna go here.
Yeah, so in another story several years ago, had somebody knock on my porch, on my front door, and the guy said he was from Comcast. Like, I don't know, and I'm like, well, you don't have a Comcast vehicle and you don't have a Comcast uniform. He's like, oh, well, we're subcontractors. He was legit because I ended up calling Comcast.
Yeah.
You guys do anything? And they're like, yeah, we have subcontractors out. But
Yeah.
I think, it's a good idea to ask for some kind of identification and just don't take some guy's word for it. He's knocking on your door.
yeah.
You probably just check and see if anybody's home
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brandon?
No, I think the only thing, I think we ought to vote on it tonight. We have enough background information on it. It's under $1,000. I think we ought to vote on it and move on one way or the other.
I'm good with it.
It's not that I don't support the whole philosophy of it, but we have discussed the fact that the sign height goes against federal regulations.
But here again,
Doesn't.
I sent you the information directly from the individual, Marcos Miller, who is in charge of enforcing all this sign stuff. And you saw what he said. We
Do
had two
whatever you
choices.
want.
We could put it on, we could put individual posts, or the select board has the authority to allow us to put them on street signs, because that's your purview.
So I feel when I read the state laws that the select board can indeed make exceptions. But to me, an exception is not 30 times. To me, it's like if there's a special situation in the neighborhood, somebody with special needs, it needs to be recognized. But I'm just concerned about the town's liability in this situation, that's why.
Of having a sign on a post?
Yes, because it brings it below the level that the federal regulations are for the height of signs.
The MUAT or whatever it is, regulations are superseded by the state regulations. As a general rule, the state is gonna tell us what we can and cannot do. And if there's some concern, the reason I had those signs that I showed you all, those signs that were definitely able to be hit, had it been there for over 30 years and nobody got hit and nobody sued the town, these are gonna be 6.5 feet up in the air off the travel portion of road where nobody's gonna be driving a bike or walking. I just think we're carrying it to the extreme about worrying about being sued by the town. By the town being sued on this. I think we're splitting hairs. And if Marcos Miller says we can do it, he's the authority. He's the ranking authority in the state. And he tells Dave Walker what Dave Walker can do. Now, if Dave Walker wants to argue with him, that's fine and dandy. But I just want to interject something here. I worked in public works before I retired for 20 years in the town of Brattleboro. Not only did I make signs and install signs my last 2 years, but I did trenching. We installed pipe below 5 feet. Trench boxes. I was surprised the town didn't own a trench box, to be honest with you, because the liability of not having a trench box in itself was interesting. So this, to me, is peanuts. It's nothing, and you want to have a lot of them because everybody's going to want that recognition in their neighborhood. That's
So-
the reason for.
The sign pictures that you brought us before were old signs, and from what I read was they are basically grandfathered in. They can stay there, but when they need to be replaced, they're gonna have to follow the regulations.
Did you read that in the MUAT manual?
I read that in the state stuff.
In the state manual? Because
laws.
my thing is, if we're so concerned about hitting these signs, then why are we allowing those other signs to stay?
But to knowingly put something up that you feel is not legal and appropriate at this point in time, to me, puts us at a liability. The signs that are already there, when they
You know
get
what?
replaced, they're
I'm
gonna
not
have to go up.
change your mind. I'm not gonna change your mind.
No, and we're
I-
not gonna change yours, so.
And you're not gonna change mine, but I really believe this is an effort that's supported nationwide, statewide.
I'm not
We have federal,
denying
we have,
the value of that. I am not denying the value of that. I'm just concerned about the placement.
The alternative is buying separate posts.
she knows that already, they
Yeah.
know all
Your
of that.
cost will,
We went over all that, and we don't need more signposts for the highway department to hit when they're plowing. I'm just saying, let's get on with it. I'm not, I gotta be honest with you, I never, ever in the wildest dream thought that it was gonna need an act of Congress to put 30 neighborhood watch signs up in a neighborhood at a cost of $786, and that I would have I've jumped through every hoop. I've done my due diligence. I've checked with the right authorities. I checked with people you can speak directly to. They, in turn, sent me the information. I gave you all the information. And I think it was very plain that we are okay with it. Now, I know you're probably saying, well, if the select board says yes, then the town's liable. Well, let me ask you this question. If somebody hits one of those existing signs, is the town liable?
Well, if it's there legally, I think they have a fight on their hands. But the fact that we've already discussed the height issue, it's
Yes.
out there.
Well, I'm just saying, I did that just to show how our signs were gonna be up, well out of the way. I don't see anybody bumping into them. And, all I can say is move the question. I'm at my wit's ends.
Okay, we need to have a motion and a second before we can move the question. Lord, what is your pleasure?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the $786 for the materials to put these signs up.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion? All those in favor? Jeff?
Aye.
Brandon?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Jim?
No,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay,
Just for clarification, that's from ARPA funds. I don't know if did you say that? Is that from ARPA funds, correct?
yes,
Okay.
so we need to subtract that. Okay, we have an executive session next. And for the first part, we're gonna ask Shelley to step out. Okay,
Madam Chair, I move that we enter executive session for the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee.
do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Brandon?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. We are in executive session at 7:21. We went to executive session at 7:21, came out at 7:27, no action was taken. Do you wish to meet with us, or I will meet with you personally, okay?
Okay.
All right. Do you want to go in on the staff safety issue?
Sure, yeah, just briefly.
Yeah, in a staff safety issue.
Is that executive?
Yeah, I think we better, clear and imminent peril.
Madam Chair, I move that we enter executive session to discuss clear and imminent peril to the public safety.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Brandon?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Jim? Everyone, Shelley?
Yeah, we want to include the town administrator.
Okay, motion carries. We are in at 7:28. All right, we went to executive session at 7:28, came out at 7:51, no action was taken. Our next meeting is July 16th, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Jeff, Brendan,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Aye, we are out of here at 7:52.